Today's teardown is on another LS. We're going to take apart this early LH6, which is a 5.3 liter all aluminum V8 that's found in the Trailblazer chassis, the GMT 360, which is the Trailblazer, the Envoy, the Isuzu Ascender, the Saab 97X, and the Buick Rainier. This engine is GM's first iteration of displacement on demand in the LS engines platform. 0506 is the early version of that. That's what this engine is, which means it has a 24X reluctor wheel. The late engines starting in 07 and on, those have a 58X reluctor wheel, which is why those two engines won't interchange. Everything else on the engine is virtually the same, with one exception. So in 05 was 1 year only. You got displacement on demand, all the Gen 4 stuff, except you still have the Generation 3 intake manifold with the 3-bolt throttle body. This is supposed to be out of an 05, but it's actually has an 06 intake manifold, which is really good for me. I cannot sell the early intake manifolds for very much money, but this intake manifold is worth a bunch of money if it's not broken. Has a little damage on the throttle body, but I think we'll do okay. But this engine is pretty rough. I selected a pretty rough one today because we need to see some broken stuff. So let's get to it. The very first indicator that this is out of a Trailblazer is the all-wheel drive oil pan. That chassis has this pan which has a place for the differential to mount on this side and the axle housing on the other side, and then no other chassis has that type of pan. Also, it has Trailblazer specific exhaust manifolds. I think I covered that in one of the other 5.3 teardowns I've done, or 6.0 teardowns I think. But if you look at this, it looks pretty rough. It's got 2 broken coils on this side. The intake manifold is haphazardly installed, which again I think someone swapped out. It's missing bolts and stuff everywhere. So this will be pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. The very first thing I noticed about this engine was the giant hole in the side of the block. And that's not from like an accident or something punching into the engine. That's from something on the inside blasting through the wall of the block. And it's safe to say it wasn't the Kool-Aid Man. Well, you guys know the drill. It's time to get the spark plugs out, because that's the first thing we're going to do. Uh-oh. Oh. 7 of these plugs look pretty good. When I say pretty good, I mean they all need to be replaced evenly. However, cylinder 1, it appears we have some malice in the combustion palace. There's part of the ceramic, and it looks like the piston decided what the gap needed to be. Oh boy. Let's take the few remaining intake manifold bolts out so we can get this out of the way. Just one? I think it was just one. Ooh. This all looks pretty normal, but a couple of these cylinders have some of that aluminum gravel. I'm sure this engine's just fine. Ironically, the cylinder with the really messed up spark plug looks not so bad. I'm going to take a moment here and pull some of the external parts off of this engine, like the alternator and power steering pump bracket, the driver's side exhaust manifold, and the coils. Just get them out of the way. What? That's not the right bolt. Somebody put a 12 here. Why would they do that? But all the bolts came out and nothing broke. That's fine. Next, we're going to pull the driver's side valve cover. So this is pretty dirty, but I don't see anything awry just yet. All the rockers and stands look to be okay. I don't see any shiny oil. No sparkles. No broken valve springs. Let's go to the other side. Kind of the same deal on this side. I don't see anything awry. There's definitely a lot more oil sitting in this head, and that could be how this engine was sitting for some time. I have no idea how long this engine has been out of the vehicle. Now I'm going to crack all the rockers loose and zip them out and see what the valve train looks like. Well, that push rod has a little bit of wear on the tip. Just a little bit of wear, but nothing major. Uh-oh. That one's that one leans a little. Save that one aside. Got one partially bent push rod. Next, I'm going to pull this steam pipe off and the 10mm head bolts. Get ready to prep these heads to get them off. Nope, that one's unhappy. Super common that a bunch of debris gets caked around the bolts, especially on truck and SUV engines. Not as much on car stuff, but truck and SUVs are real bad about this. Pretty much every single engine is like this. One thing I noticed about this engine is that this valley cover was loose. And this is not a normal valley cover. This is a DoD specific valley cover called the VLOM. I don't really know what it stands for, but I always call it very likely an obvious malfunction. So we're going to get the couple loose bolts out of it and see what lies beneath. Well, there's some debris. That drives some of you guys crazy. And the rear actually doesn't look too bad, except for a leaf. That's not supposed to be there. I'm going to start with the driver's side head, and I'll be honest, there's no way this head is okay. There's just no way. Oh God, that smell. Okay, please don't pee on me. Yes. Well, I mean, 75% is a passing grade, right? These cylinders look great. Look at that. So good. Just don't look here. These are awesome. This is where one is supposed to go. We got some rings. And they say put a ring on it. That's not what they're talking about. Come here, ring. Nope. There we go. That's a compression ring. What else we got in there? It's like a grab bag. I just can't see where I'm putting my hand, which kind of sounds dangerous. Nope. Everything must have fallen into the pan. As always, the wrist pin appears to be completely unscathed, like I could put it in another engine, but don't worry, I won't. And the bore is destroyed, which it doesn't matter anyway, because there's a giant hole on the other side. This is clearly one of those, idling in the drive-thru failures. Time for the good side? Yeah, the good side. Who put this stud here? That's not supposed to be there. We're just going to kind of... That should do it. Like a glove. Okay. Oh. We've got pieces. Well, we have some aluminum gravel. It's not supposed to be on this side. How did it get here? Probably through the intake manifold, which is going to be great to clean out. And there's a pretty deep mark in that piston there from that little nugget. A bunch of oil on this side. Ooh, there's a big piece here. Well, that's part of a ring land. Cool. Both sides. Here's the deleted cylinder, and that's really not what Displacement on Demand is supposed to be about. But you can see there's debris jammed on pretty much every other combustion chamber. But this head is pretty much trash. I mean, I'm sure you could weld this up and do a bunch of work to it. It's just not worth it for some $7.99 heads. Unfortunately, this head got some damage too from the debris that probably blew through the intake manifold, at idle. That got pressed into the combustion chambers on multiple cylinders. And it's kind of a bummer. At least I didn't pay much for this engine. Let's get this water pump out of the way. And I hope it doesn't leak on me. Rusty. Haha. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've pulled that off and coolant hasn't rushed all over me. I know I shouldn't do this, but we're going to try to spin this engine over because, well, I really don't think I've got anything to lose. Nope. I think it's locked up. Yep. Well, nobody's surprised. And that means it shouldn't be too hard to get the crank pulley bolt out. That was easy. One thing I always wanted to try, and we're going to get our chance, is to use a push rod out of this engine as the push rod from the harmonic balancer puller, and we're going to see how this works. It's for science. All right, here we go. Of course, we're going to use the impact on it, so that way it's the least likelihood of bending. That was awesome. For those that are wondering why I did that, for some reason, and I really don't understand how this happened, they made the longest push rod, which is this here, the push rod part of the tool kit, this OEM Tools harmonic balancer puller, the exact same length as a 5.3 push rod. I mean, is that by chance? I have no idea. And the stock push rods are not designed to do what I just did with them. It's also hollow and probably not as strong a metal, so it bent on the first try, whereas this has probably endured a few hundred crank pulley removals. Let's go ahead and get these lifters out. Come on. Whew, I've never had that before. They really don't want to come out. We'll get them out. We always get them out. Oh, I got the tray out. What I meant to say is I always get the tray out. Let's go with the ones that I think will come out. Man. That one's got a bunch of metal debris stuck right there. I don't think the lifter has failed though. So far so good. Yeah, not bad. Really not too bad. I was expecting worse. Now it's time to pull the timing cover, and I want to talk about this timing cover. This is the only engine that I've seen, the 05 and 06 LH6 in the Trailblazer. It's the only engine I've seen with this cutout, and it looks like a galvanized steel plate. And I have no idea why this is like this. If anybody else does, please shine some light on it. I really don't understand why that's like that. No other engine has that. So we're going to go ahead and get these bolts out. Yeah, some metal fragmentation right there. That's still attached, unlike the last one of these I did. Yeah, let's go ahead and get this cam gear off and see if we can get this cam slid out. There we are. And that's a new one for me too. I don't remember ever seeing 10s holding this plate in. They're almost always T40s. Let's get that plate out. Yeah, it's not beveled. The other plates that take the Torx headed bolts are beveled. Might be because it's an early engine. Yeah, it came out pretty easy. It's definitely a factory cam. One thing I wanted to mention before we flip this engine over is look at the wear on that cam bearing. And you can see there's some metal fragments from the Kool-Aid man trying to make an exit. I don't really think that's who was responsible. One thing I wanted to say before I turn this engine upside down, this has a block heater. This is the first one of these I've seen in a long time with a block heater, and you can look at the amount of corrosion where that differential sat. This definitely came from the Great North. Alrighty, it's time to make a mess. Let me pull my bolt pin out. Let's see if this is actually drained, or we're actually going to drain it. That sounds like it's not drained. I can't necessarily see it. Oh, it looks like just water. Sounds like another one of those cash register engines. Oh, it's spitting out stuff. Ah, some piston McNuggets are coming out of this thing. Time to pull the oil pan. Okay, let's see what we have. This, that what is going to do it. Oh, I hear loose, jingly bits. Oh no, my nuggets! Oh, some big ones. Inside of the oil pan has a nice silvery metallic sheen, thanks to various engine components that are probably powder now. There's some larger chunks in there. A couple identifiable pieces. We got a few McNuggets over here. I don't know. I got some cartilage in there. Wait, that's a ring. Sorry. Yeah, this one, I don't think this one's rebuildable. There's a good size one. These are like the homemade McNuggets. Oh, I needed that. And there's two of the circlips for the wrist pin. Those are still good. And the pickup is not really full of anything either. It's got a couple chunks in there that probably happened in the explosion, but it's not crammed full of junk. Next, we're going to get the oil pickup and windage tray out of the way so we can see the real damage. Oh, another tasty McNugget. Sadly, this suffered a little bit of damage. Still usable, but the windage tray, that's bent all around that cylinder, and there's actually a pretty good sized mark there. Oof, look at how they bent that. It's pretty awesome. Not quite as awesome as the one that was almost cut in half. Still awesome though. Oh, I see why it's locked up. Ooh, there's lots of bad stuff going on in here. Well, right off the bat, that's bad. That's not supposed to go there. Let's get this. Ah, yeah. So that's pretty bad. Let's keep looking. Well, there's the bottom of that wrist pin. There's part of an oil control ring. It's not really doing much. And there's another piece of piston. I wonder why I couldn't turn this engine over. There was not any amount of force that was going to make that happen. And of course, a bunch of metal back here by the reluctor wheel. Just good things all around. Next, I'm going to take the oil pump and the timing chain off. Still feels all right. Let's try to get that one piece of piston out of here. Ah, that's a pretty good sized chunk right there. I don't know if that is going to make it. Ooh, that is not coming out. I might try a little harder actually. Let's get some of these rings out of here. Oh, there's another good sized chunk of piston. Wow. I'll be collecting this aluminum gravel forever. Let's use this weak little screwdriver and see what happens. Oh, hey, look. Oh. I can move it, but I can't get it out of there. I can almost get it out of there. Oh, now it's loose. Maybe I can turn the crank over. Let's find the crank bolt and see if we can turn this over. Ooh, I think I can get it to move. Nope. I thought I could, but I can't. Well, I'm not going to be able to get very far with this piston hanging out down here. So we're going to kind of force it out of there. Hey, look at that. Let's see if I can back the crank off this way. Yes. There we go. That part of it's still good. It's just where it attaches to the rest of it that's bad. Now let's try to turn this over. Oh, we have movement. Albeit very stiff, I can still move stuff, so that's important. Well, let's start getting these rods and pistons out, and then we'll get the crank out. Well, that wasn't very tight. Oh, is there supposed to be a bearing in here? Oh, there is a bearing in here. It's spun. Spun a bearing. Well, I think we just solved the mystery. Check out that spun bearing. That's not even the cylinder that let go. I don't know if I can get that off of there. Ah, yes. Oh, look, baby pistons. This is a storage device. Ah, there's a bearing on that one too. Also very spun. This one's just going to kind of tumble out of the bore there. Man, that rod. Is this what they call shot peening? That can't be right. So here's the bearing for that cylinder, and I can barely tell where it starts and stops. Oh, it's like a slap bracelet. I see. That doesn't mean it's going to come off, but I'm going to try anyway. Let's see if I can cut myself doing this. It's a good thing I'm wearing these gloves. Oh, look, there's two pieces here. Look at that bearing. What's odd is it's not really as thin as I've seen. I've seen them where they're like paper thin, like Reynolds wrap. So I wanted to show you the ridge here in this crankshaft. And keep in mind, it spun both bearings, so there was damage on both sides. There's very bad damage on cylinder 2, but cylinder 1 is measurably smaller. Like you can see a huge ledge between the two. It's a lot of damage. Let's see if this turns over any easier now. Oh, it locked up again. What? No, I was just kidding. I'm just a pipsqueak here. Let's get the next two cylinders, 3 and 4. Well, I just pulled cylinders 3 and 4, and cylinder 3 also had a spun bearing. It wasn't like 180 out. It's probably like 30 degrees. Unfortunately, I don't know why I didn't press record. I don't know why I do things anymore. Now it should be really easy. Nope. Why do I feel like there's more damage? Got some more sauce in there. A couple of chunks. And it's still really hard to spin. Look at that. Another McNugget and sauce. And these bearings in the back look okay. Everything in the back of this engine looks pretty good. There's minimal marks on the rods from making contact with floating piston debris, which is really, you really want to see that. There's a few marks in these bearings, a little bit of wear, but they look pretty good. And as you get towards the front of this engine, you can see that's where the damage starts to be apparent. These were the first pair of spun bearings, third pair of spun bearings, but its adjacent cylinder did not spin. Those were in okay shape. They are grooved. There's definitely some damage there. And then as you get towards the front of the engine, that's where the real damage is. And as you can see, they make spun bearings in a different color so you know that they're spun. And they are a little bit different shape, and they are much darker, and they're much thinner, but they are still there, which is kind of impressive, really. And then there's the piston. That's the majority of it anyway. Let's go ahead and start pulling the main bolts out. I think this is your favorite part, right? Well, I think we know why it's hard to turn. Let's see what exists underneath this. Oh, yeah. That's pretty rough. I think that's probably why this was a little challenging to turn. Well, none of these are spun yet. Yeah, man, even the thrust bearing's torn up. Check out that thrust bearing. That is pretty rough. Both sides. There's the extra ventilation port that I talked about at the beginning of this video. Man, that was a lot of swings with that rod and wrist pin to do that damage. That was a lot. Here's the crank, and it's still got a bearing stuck to it. It's pretty awful. And then this main bearing is still stuck in here. Let go. There we go. Yeah, those are pretty gnarly looking. Yeah, not so great. The rest of the crank, as you can see, lots of heat, lots of wear. This crank is destroyed. It's not so bad back here. It doesn't matter. We've got a novel idea here. If you guys just did this more often, I wouldn't have hardly as many engines to take apart. I'd be fine if you guys put me out of business. Just check your oil, will you? Checking your oil is the easiest thing that you can do to keep your engine from emulating what that engine looks like. All you have to do is check your oil. And if you own one of those fancy cars that you have to like spin a knob, like my stupid iDrive system in my BMW, do that. You have to check your oil. That is the most paramount thing I can tell you to keep your engine running. I know oil change interval matters and weight matters, all that stuff matters, but not as much as making sure that the engine has the correct amount of oil in it. That is absolutely the most important. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you'd like to buy parts off of this engine, which there's not much, or any of the other engines I've torn apart, I'm going to leave my email in the video description. And as always, I love all the criticism, I love the feedback, the suggestions, I love it all. And no, I did not buy another. Okay, I did buy this car, but it's a parts car. I'm off the hook, right? Anyway, catch you on the next one.